Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. Today I have 5 1990s 9.8 comics you should be buying, plus a bunch of bonus picks as well. So yeah, just a great list of some 1990s key issues to consider collecting. So first up, it's Batman Adventures number 12. This one is from 1993, kind of the big sort of no-brainer 1990s key issue to target. First overall appearance of Harley Quinn in this one, and even in the 9.8, this is one that's right near the top of the mountain for 1990s 9.8 comics. It's a tough one in a 9.8. There's a 1,020 9.8s in the blue label, so just getting over 1,000 on this one. It was always pretty great that there was less than 1,000 of these for like an early 90s comic as well. So this one's going to be pretty heavily printed, but there's just not too many of them in the super high grade. With it being kind of like a Fox Kids book, I think right from the bat, people were just like tearing these up and coloring in them and throwing them to the kids and all that. So not too many in a 9.8 for kind of an early to mid 1990s key issue. 13.9% is the 9.8 ratio. Yeah, that's phenomenal for an early to mid 1990s comic. Of all graded copies sent to CGC, only 13.9% of them are 9.8. So I'm kind of seeing some cooling down prices for a Batman Adventures 12 in a 9.8. I think this is one you can absolutely consider buying right now if you're a big Harley Quinn fan. A sale for $2,667.73, and I saw one sell for $2,750. These were all pretty recent in the last week or so. So I was under the impression that I thought this one was sort of like $3,100, maybe $2,900 if you kind of got a good deal. So I think with the market cooling down in the last month or so, I think maybe a Batman Adventures 12 is just cooling down a bit, and it's one you want to think about when it's cooling down to buy if you're really serious about 9.8 comics, or if you're just the biggest Harley Quinn fan, this is the one to get. So cooling down a bit, we'll say like closer to 2,500 would just be an awesome deal, I think, in yeah, pretty much like one of the best 9.8s you can buy from the 1990s, a Batman Adventures 12 in a 9.8. All right, next one is Spawn number 1 in the Newsstand edition. I like to specify for Spawn number 1. There were like 2 million or something like that Spawn number 1s printed. And if you look on the census, there's 9,257 Spawn number 1s in the 9.8. That's the newsstands and the directs all clumped together. So most of them are going to be direct editions. So, you know, I think that's the most 9.8s on the census, you know, of all time for any issue. So makes a lot of sense to kind of go after the more rare newsstand version. 48.4% the 9.8 ratio. And Spawn number 1 newsstand, 9.8. This one's hanging in there. Yeah, certainly I think books are kind of prone to a cool down right now, but some pretty kind of normal prices, I would say, on Spawn number 1 newsstand 9.8. $953.70 and $942.70. I always thought in the last 3 to 6 months, like just a little under 1,000 was doable on a Spawn 1 newsstand, and they're kind of sticking right around that price. So, yeah, showing some strength when yeah, the market is kind of cooling down. And I've always liked a Spawn number 1 in the newsstand edition. You know, that Spawn movie is going to be coming at some point. You'd think. Although for like, you know, the 5 or 6 years I've collected 9.8 comics, there's been that Spawn movie rumor, you know, off and on. But just one of those big heroes from the 1990s. If the movie comes out, there's probably that, you know, pop potential on a Spawn 1 newsstand as well. And of note, if your budget's a little bit higher and you're the biggest Spawn fan, consider like a Spawn 1 black and white in a 9.8. There's less than 100 of those in the blue label. That's a great one. I think that one is like 2,300 or so. Malibu Sun 13. That's the first appearance of Spawn in kind of a promotion. And there's only, I think there's less than 40 of those in a blue label. Really tough to find. That one's going to be about 2,500 as well, I believe. So consider those Spawn ones if your budget's a little bit higher. All right, next one from the 90s that I really love is Batman Beyond number 1. And, you know, kind of in the first print UPC code version of Batman Beyond, number 1 is kind of the one to get if you're the biggest Batman Beyond fan. And it's a really tough one. This one is from the late 90s, so we're in 1999 on Batman Beyond number 1. And in the late 90s, comic books just really cooled down, and that was kind of the peak of the tech bubble. So everything was about, you know, getting on the internet, and books were kind of a thing of the past at the time. And yeah, actually just comic book collecting and reading and prints really plummeted as well. So this one, I think, is not very heavily printed, and the census shows that there's 373 9.8s in a blue label. A 373 for, you know, Batman Beyond having such a big cult of following of fans. That's not very many of these. And the super high grade, 27.4%. The 9.8 ratio, so just over kind of one in 4 of them are 9.8 sent to CGC. That's a really tough ratio for a 9.8 comic, and, you know, kind of in the late 90s, getting into the new modern age, I guess you could say, on this one. But still some pretty stiff prices on a Batman Beyond #1. I had recently saw one sell. It was an auction in Canada as well for $1,921 US dollars. Kind of did the Canadian dollar conversion there. But I saw another one sell. This was, I think, 3 weeks ago or so. Not too many of these sell because, you know, there's, you know, only 373 of them out there. But $2,325 I saw one sell for. So that seems to be getting a little bit up there. I think, you know, with the comic book market cooling down a little bit, I think that $2,325, that was going to be kind of pretty close to when the Batman was out. And I think just in general, Batman key issues were getting a good buck during that time. So $1,921 I think is a better price, and I believe in the last 3 to 6 months I saw one of these go for like $1,700. So I think that's going to be the lower end of the range. Maybe still doable though. But I love Batman Beyond. Yeah, I was about, you know, kind of like 14, 15 years old when the cartoon came out, and it was just one of those last cartoons that I still really loved as a kid. And it's got a big cult of following of fans. A tough one in this Batman Beyond #1 first print in the UPC. A tough one to collect. So that's kind of why the prices are pretty high on that one. But hopefully you can get it closer to $1,700 if you want a Batman Beyond #1 in the first print, 9.8. Okay, I talked about this one recently. I have this one, but I didn't bring it out. It's Batman Vengeance of Bane special #1. So this one's from 1993. Pulling back, cooling down in price a little bit, which is kind of great if you want to buy this one. And I think I underestimated, you know, I sort of had recommended this one quite a bit in the last 6 months, and maybe I underestimated the Batman movie just heating up all Batman key issues. Because some cooling down prices on A Vengeance of Bane recently. There's a 1,164 9.8s in the blue label, 30.9%. The 9.8 ratio, I saw one sell for $491 US dollars just in the last like couple days here. I saw another one sell for $575. So if this one's gonna get right around $500, maybe even a little bit less than 500, I think whoever bought that one for under 500 that's a phenomenal deal. I think Bane is, you know, Batman villains are kind of special. They're just so cool. This being the origin and first appearance of Bane. This is definitely one to want as a Batman fan, and the timing's just getting better as it kind of pulls back. So yeah, I think definitely if you can get around 500, maybe even a little less, a Vengeance of Bane special is just one you want to get in there in a 9.8 at that $500 price or so. And yeah, personally, like if you really wanted this one and it looked great in the pictures, I'd be willing to pay up to $575 for Vengeance of Bane special #1. Okay, last one on the main list, and we'll kind of rattle off a bunch of honorable mentions. It's a New Mutants 98, though. Yeah, New Mutants 98. First appearance of Deadpool, Gideon, and Copycat as Domino, I guess it is. Pretty classic 90s cover as well by Rob Liefeld. So for this one, in a direct edition, pretty great one, but you know, if you're really serious about, you know, first appearance of Deadpool and you got the budget, I think this is a great one to consider in that Newsstand edition as well. New Mutants 98 in a Newsstand edition. I just saw a sale in a Newsstand edition for a really good price. It's you know, a price to aim for if you really want the Newsstand edition in a New Mutants 98. And I think it's probably worth it. Just there's quite a lot of these. This one coming out in 1991, going to be really heavily printed, and 3,768 9.8s in the blue label for a New Mutants 98. Quite a lot of them. 18.5%. The 9.8 ratio. So recent sales in direct edition, I saw one go for $1,711.51, and another one $1,826. That's right in the range they've been going in the last 3 to 6 months, let's call it. Did see a newsstand sell just in the last few days here. Sold for $2,573.41. That's a really great price. Yeah, there's off and on you kind of see these newsstands just go for well over kind of $3,000 in a New Mutants 98. But this one was in an auction, so I was really kind of interested at what this one was going to end at. This is right in that fair value zone for a New Mutants 98 in a newsstand edition, 9.8, $2,573. I think is a price to aim for on that one. So if your budget's a little bit higher, you're the biggest Deadpool fan, I really recommend that newsstand edition. And the directs are kind of right around that sort of $1,700, $1,800 price right now. Okay, so some bonus ones. First one is Super Mario Brothers, #1. This one's a really cool one, tough one in a 9.8, so maybe go the raw route on this one, but this is a Valiant comic from 1990. And if you're the biggest Nintendo fan, you played a lot of Mario Brothers. I got a good friend of mine who's a really big Super Mario Brothers game fan. This is the one to get. Yeah, this is kind of the first appearance of Mario Brothers. I think it might be the first Nintendo comic. Don't kind of quote me on that, but a Valiant comic, going to be probably lower printed than most 1990s comics for sure, like Marvel and DC comics. So yeah, and I remember a sale on this one. I think they're about $3,000 in the 9.8, and there's 30 of them in a blue label, so it's super tough to find. But one you want to think about for sure if you're a big Mario Brothers fan. I like this next one. I got a few of these in a 9.8. Silver Surfer 44, first appearance of the Infinity Gauntlet. I think this is kind of a great cooling down one too. Yeah, just the Infinity Gauntlet was in all those Avengers movies. Now it's kind of a cold book, but you still get that big first appearance. I think the Infinity Gauntlet's going to be a cool one to have over time. Silver Surfer 44. I think that one is kind of in the 300 to 350 range. Kind of we'll call it 300 to 400, depending on how great the centering is and the colors and how lucky you get. Next one, Star Wars: Heir to the Empire, #1. This is kind of the Star Wars comic book to get from the 1990s, I think. It's the first, when George Lucas, he sort of took off the rights and allowed other people to make other canon Star Wars stories. Heir to the Empire was the first story of that kind of type. So yeah, Heir to the Empire, #1. They're about 1,500 or so. I think one sold for 1,600 in a 9.8. First appearance of Admiral Thrawn. Next one, Amazing Spider-Man 361. I like this one in the newsstand as well. Similar, reasoning to a Spawn #1 or a New Mutants 98. Early 90s book, super heavily printed. You go for that more rare newsstand in a 9.8. It's a pretty great collector item. Great cover on a first full appearance of Carnage on Amazing Spider-Man 361. So the kind of secondary Harley Quinn keys, I guess you could say. Mad Love. Do have a Mad Love, a really nice one too. With the black cover, this one's really tough in a 9.8 as well. I'm going to clean up this case a little bit, or sleeve. So Mad Love is absolutely one to think about. I think they're about 750 or so. They might be cool. You might be able to get a bit of a cooling down price on both of these because the Batman movie, I think, did kind of heat up all the Batman books. Now we're on the other side of the Batman movie, so hopefully these are just a little bit of a better price, where they had reached kind of $900 to $1,000. I think both of them are similar price. I think you might be able to kind of aim for that $750 range on Batman Harley Quinn and a Batman Adventures Mad Love. Both are just awesome. Next one is Simpsons Comics and Stories #1 from 1993. Yeah, I've kind of recommended this one after I discovered it a year ago. I'm like, oh, this is the first appearance of Simpsons, and then it was $350 or so in a 9.8, and they sell over $1,000 now. It's 1,100 or so. I see, quite a few of these Simpsons Comics and Stories #1 going for first appearance of Simpsons in comics. Next one's a Batman 567, first appearance of Batgirl, Cassandra Cain. This is a cool one with a great cover from 1999. Kind of a late 90s one to think about if you're a Batman fan. And last one on the bonus list here is Wolverine 88. Yeah, this is one of my more favorite. Used to talk about this one on a lot of the underfollowed videos that I did two or 3 years ago. Kind of a great one from, this one came out in 1994. That certainly back then it was really underfollowed. I don't think very many people knew it was kind of the first Deadpool versus Wolverine. But nowadays, a little bit more of a better, more common key issue to collect out of the 90s, and I do just love the cover and any, Wolverine key issue, and the Wolverine versus, whatever hero key issues end up being pretty well collected, and I think this one's a great one to consider. I think they're rated kind of around $350, maybe even a little closer to $300 on a Wolverine 88 9.8 nowadays. Okay, I'll put a list of all the books we talked about in the description below, but yeah, the 1990s is just, in 1995, I was about 10 years old, just loving like Spawn comics and, McFarlane and Spider-Man comics and all of that, so really love all the 1990s key issues, and yeah, they're pretty, in the 9.8 generation, the 1990s is, kind of in that sweet spot, sort of, certainly the 1980s and the 1990s in the 9.8 generation are just great generations to collect in. So hopefully you got some ideas. Thanks so much for watching. As always, I will see you on the next one. If you're liking my content, please subscribe and hit that bell, and I'll keep you updated on future videos.